I remember when George first started doing the Mice and Makar stuff, and I kind of thought, oh, this is okay. This is pretty much the same type of stuff that George was just doing all the time anyway. But I never wanted to play the game myself though. Back then I wasn't even uploading anyway. I didn't start until I think he was probably about 4 episodes in. But as this series went on, I kind of started thinking, okay, this is getting a bit more interesting now. And he talked about doing Mice and Makar multiplayer, but I wasn't really sure how that would work. I knew that the multiplayer was separate from the main game, but I didn't really know the kind of upload that we would make from a Mice and Makar thing. And if we were to do a multiplayer thing, how would it even link in with what he was doing at the time, which was starting to build a storyline with Supo and all of that. And then one day, I think he was just about to release either the 9th or 10th episode, and he was talking about giving Mice and Makar a break. He said that he'd give it a break for like a month or 2 or maybe 3 months. And he was thinking that whenever he did return, it could potentially lead into a multiplayer upload. So I knew how his story for season 1 was going to end, with him leaving Finland and basically being out on the run from Supo. And I was thinking, I wonder if I can add to this storyline rather than me just appearing. I wonder if I can try and make it more of an actual story if I can. I didn't want to mess with anything that he'd already done because it's his story and he started it. But if he wanted to have a multiplayer episode or a couple of multiplayer episodes, I wanted to try and have my own character in that world. I didn't really know if it would be a Grog character at that time, but I just wanted to have like a starter episode. It was originally just going to be 1 episode that was going to be like a little in-between part, and then he would carry on doing the story afterwards, and I might not have even been a part of it. But I thought I'll give that 1 episode a go and continue the storyline as like a little midpoint between the 2 series that George was doing, and it did a lot better than I was thinking. It's now the most viewed video on this channel. I think during the early planning of that upload, it wasn't even gonna connect with any multiplayer stuff. It was just gonna be its own contained thing. And towards, I think, a few weeks before I was recording the thing, we talked about how we can connect it to George's first episode back. And when we were talking about how we could connect it all, that's when I had the idea that I wanted to have my own Grog character. Because if we're going to establish me in this world and start me as me just looking like this, how do we get from this to the character? So I'd sent George a load of different ideas that I was coming up with, mostly at like 2 or 3 a.m. because that's when I get all the best ideas. I was talking to him about that maybe the Supo could have made a version of Mice and Makar that then we get chucked into, and that's how we make the multiplayer world. So it's separate from the world that he's started, and it's just our own little contained thing so that it doesn't mess up any continuity. And while we're in that world, that's how I can then have my Grog character rather than me just appearing in Finland, because if I was kidnapped by Supo, I would still look like this in the real world. Whereas George's character, because he's not done a face reveal, his Grog character is just him in both worlds. But I was kind of treating it as everything that he'd done in season 1 was the same world that I'm in. And then any of the stuff with me in it, it's when we've been uploaded to the Supo's game. Again, there was a lot of back and forth as to how it would all work, but George seemed pretty on board with it. And between the making of that first one that I did and the newest one that we did, I'd managed to come up with this whole storyline that branches away from what George is doing, but also sometimes connects to it. Because although you can do multiplayer episodes within that Mice and Makar world that George had created, I wanted to try and have a look at what the implications could have been for me then getting away from that, and how it would work with the Supo, and basically expand the story if I could without messing up everything that was already done. So we'd agreed that we were going to do a multiplayer thing. It was initially potentially going to be 2 separate episodes. It was maybe going to be 1 episode on George's and then a continuation of it on mine, or maybe the other way around, so it would be 2 episodes that went out on the same day. But when we were actually recording the multiplayer upload, we kind of figured that it would be better to just have 1 recording and have both of our points of views, similar to like the beam content and stuff like that, but within Mice and Makar. And I knew while we were recording this that at some point I need to record the bit that this whole video is around as well. That's how do I escape and how do I show people that I have escaped from the super world to then the real world, but also make it pretty entertaining if I can. For sure, there was a load of ways that I could have done it that would probably not have been as interesting, but I had an idea and I was slightly worried about doing it, but I thought this could be a really cool idea. I knew that we were going to get to the edge of the map in the upload. That was always going to be how it ended, because then it calls back when I did it in the first episode. That was another thing that with upcoming stuff and stuff that I've already done, I want to try and connect it and leave little hints to stuff if I can, because I feel like it's probably the most important story on my channel. So payoffs that for people that watch everything, they're probably the most important thing. Because sure, you can join and just watch one, but for people that watch everything, there's little hints to stuff. Even in the last one, there's a couple of people that notice little hints that then lead into the next one. And there'll be little hints in the next one that lead into the next one. So yeah, anyway, I went off track quite a bit there. But I always knew that it would end where I'm falling. I wasn't really sure how George was gonna disappear at the time, but I knew that it would end where I'm falling. And then lightning hits me, and because of like how quickly it hits me and it pushes me back, I could then just edit quickly me going from one world to the other as if I'd like fallen through the monitor. But I knew that because I would have so much momentum from the game world, it would then mean I need to purposefully give myself momentum when I'm here. So when I was editing that episode, I'd done all of it up until I think it was the boat bit at the end. So the whole of that section, I think I hadn't done that yet, but I knew that I was about to get to the bit where I'd fall. And I was kind of nervous, not gonna lie, because I didn't know how it would work. I knew that I'd have to get onto my desk and fall back onto my chair. I made sure that everything around here looked exactly the same as it did when I left in the first episode, or as close as I could get. I think that maybe the tissue box that was on the side was probably a different color or something, but everything else was exactly how I'd left it in the end of that episode when the Supo took me. So everything was all set up, but there was one more thing that I needed to do. I positioned the legs on this chair because it's basically the legs are in a star position. So that bit I made sure was at the back. So when I hit there, it's got nothing to stop it. It will just bend and go back. So I knew that jumping onto this would most likely take the chair backwards, but I wasn't sure. I was pretty sure, but not 100%. The only thing I had to be careful of was right there where the cabinet is. If I go back a sec, there is a lip just here. I don't know if the camera can see it, but I'm hoping that it can. There is a lip there that is a pretty sharp edge if you were to hit it. So that was my one concern, but I was hoping that the way that I'd angled myself, it wouldn't hit it. And then I had to press record. I recorded it with my phone from there, and I recorded it with this webcam from there. I knew that I'd always use the version that's over there because it would look the best, but I also recorded it on there for this video because I was thinking this could end up pretty funny, so I might want to talk about it afterwards. So I'd press record, and I was so nervous. This is gonna hurt. Okie dokie. Time to jump off my chair. I was ridiculously nervous. I remember I got onto my desk and I just was like knelt down. So I think I had my hands on the wall there, and I was thinking I just need to fall back. But for a while I didn't. I was very hesitant because I can imagine it's a lot like, I don't know, if you're skydiving or something. As soon as you go, there's no saving you. But I also had to time it with something that was on the screen at the same time because I'd already edited together the static with a specific thing that shows up at a specific time. So I had to time that with the fall and hope that they didn't overlap. I think looking back at it now, I probably should have maybe stayed here for a bit, for maybe like 2 seconds longer before going back, but it was pretty much dead on, and there was no way that I was going to do it more than once. This was a one-time thing. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I'm going to have to maybe change the story slightly, or find a different way that I get out of the world. So I'm just like stood on my desk for probably about 2 minutes, contemplating potentially my own demise. And then what I do, because I've still got my arms on that wall, I just push.
Ow. Ow.
The fall itself wasn't too bad, but the problem afterwards was I potentially could have sent myself into shock. I'd fallen down and I just kind of stayed there for a second to think, okay, is everything all good? Do I need to stay in character, or have we got a problem here?
Ooh, that was very close to killing me.
From what I could tell, everything was okay. It felt like my head had skimmed something.
Oh, ow.
I was thinking, have I hit something? Have I? And probably about 20 times within the next 2 to 5 minutes, I was constantly checking myself, checking the back of my head, seeing if there was like any blood or a scratch or something, because I feel like I was potentially panicking a bit. I knew that the recording was going to turn out perfect. I could just tell that it was amazing, but I got a slight headache and I felt slightly shook up, but I felt okay at the same time. So I was unsure really what was happening. One thing that I knew for certain though was back here, I have got one of these things. Basically, you put a candle at the back of it and it lights up through the different holes. It's a Christmas thing. There was a male one and a female one. Male one is still here. Female one is not here. You can see during the fall, I think it might be maybe my chair or maybe my arm. Something jolts the female gingerbread woman forward. I think that the chair hit the back and skimmed my head. I at the time was falling back, so I was kind of like that. And I think it might have been my arm hit the gingerbread woman as she was falling forward, and she smashed.
Ow.
She then rolled onto the floor down there into about 3 pieces, I think. I knew that after the fall, I was going to say ow, because I'd pictured the fall so many times that going from music in a scene to suddenly nothing and quiet, I feel like having me say ow after that point, just with nothing else behind it, would have been really funny, and it turned out perfect. And then I looked back at the footage and I realized I'd recorded the webcam one slightly wrong. So I had the static on the screen at the time, and the static was purposefully with the sound on. I think I had it at max, so that you can very, very slightly hear it through my headset on that mic on my phone. And if you go back to the recording at that point, you can very slightly hear it. But what I didn't do on OBS when I was recording the webcam version was mute it. So as I'm falling, and the bits just before I'm falling, according to this camera, there's just static.
Ow.
But luckily everything with that one that I knew I was going to use with my phone was perfect. So I took it from my phone onto my PC, edited it all, and hoped for the best because it took me so long to edit that. Just the upload in general. And to be fair, the upload didn't do quite as well as I was thinking. It did really well, like compared to everything else. But compared to that first one that I did, it didn't do as well as that. But I know a lot of the people that are pretty diehard with me and George's stuff, or even just my stuff at times, that they enjoyed it. So that was the main goal for any of this. But in the process, I could have potentially hospitalized myself. Yeah, England is a struggle. The next My Summer Car upload is gonna be something slightly different if I can do it properly. If not, then it might end up being scrapped, I don't know. But it's gonna be a My Summer Car upload that hasn't been done before. It's not like any of the stuff George has done, and it's not like any of the ones I've done so far, but it's definitely important and you definitely need to watch it. So yeah, that'll probably be out in like 2 weeks. But yeah, I survived just about by probably about that much. And for future My Summer Car stuff, I will not be jumping off my desk because I do not trust myself to not hit that. So yeah, see you, fool.